Greetings to all and welcome to the Seattle Law of One podcast. Today's episode is about archetypes of the body. In the cosmology of the Law of One, the archetypical mind, also known as the Egyptian tarot, can be thought of as the blueprint for third density incarnations in our part of the universe. If your third density incarnation was a video game, and in many ways it is, you could think of the archetypical mind as the programming or the software behind the video game. It consists of 22 images representing archetypes of the mind, the body, and the spirit. Today, we're going to focus on the archetypes of the body. How can understanding this better help you accelerate your spiritual growth and evolution? Let's find out. My name is Jonathan Tong, and I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found in the list of study groups of the L&L research website shown on your screen. We do have a Facebook group, and we meet on Zoom twice a week, Tuesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific time, Saturdays 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our Facebook group or our Zoom sessions. Anyone who's interested and available is welcome to join. Just contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com to get on our mailing list. We send out emails once a week with Zoom links and information on what we're talking about that week. We do also have a YouTube channel where we keep recordings of previous podcast episodes, as well as monthly Q&As with Jim McCarty. You can go to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button to get notifications when we upload new videos, and contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com if you'd like to sit in on any of our Q&A sessions. As mentioned, the topic for today is archetypes of the body. Let's go ahead and meet our panelists. Panelists, go ahead. Let our viewers know who you are and where you're calling from, starting with Andy.
Hi, I'm Andy. I'm calling from Cornwall in southwest England, and I'm very excited to be talking about the archetypes again. Thanks for having me.
We are very excited to have you back. Always a joy to hang out with you. And Neely?
Hi, thank you for having me, Jonathan. I'm Neely, and I'm calling from near Portland, Oregon.
Thank you so much for being back. Always joy. And Guillermo?
Hello, here's Guillermo Martinez from Montreal, born in Peru, but from Montreal, and glad to be here.
We are so glad to have you back. Always a joy. Did want to remind our viewers that none of us here are experts or authorities on the Law of One, or the archetypical mind, or the Egyptian tarot, or any other tarot for that matter. We are just normal people like you, giving our best shot at understanding something that is considered by many to be one of the most difficult parts of the Law of One to understand. Anything that any of us say could be wrong. You're welcome to disagree with anything that any of us or all of us say. If you are already familiar with the Law of One and the entity known as Quo, you might want to skip ahead to the chapter on what is the archetypical mind. Otherwise, for those who are new to the Law of One, you can think of it as a set of spiritual teachings based on the understanding that all is one and that one thing is love. Everything that we're reading today came to us through the process of channeling. You can think of channeling as a form of telepathic communication between humans and entities such as angelic beings, extraterrestrial beings, inner planes beings, spirits of deceased, higher self, etc. Basically, a channel serves as a mouthpiece for other entities to speak through, and in this case, those entities would appear to be of extraterrestrial origin. There are two types of channeling that have been developed by our friends at L&L Research. Trance channeling is when the channel is in a trance state, meaning subconscious or unconscious as if asleep, meaning they are not at all aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they're saying them. It is as if they're talking in their sleep. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Ra in the 1980s, early 80s. Conscious channeling is when the channel is in a conscious but deep meditative state, meaning they're only somewhat aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they're saying them, as if they're kind of coming out of sleep into half awake, half asleep. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Quo, starting in the mid-1980s up to present day. Who is Quo? You can think of Quo as a group entity made up of three social memory complexes: Ra at 6th density, Latwii at 5th density, Hatan at 4th density. You can think of the social memory complex as a planetary consciousness. It would be as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one group mind. You can think of densities or dimensions as different levels of consciousness or different levels of reality, since those two things are so closely intertwined. Imagine, if you will, that the elements of earth, fire, water, and air have some form of consciousness, as many indigenous peoples have been saying for centuries that they do. We would refer to that as first density. You can think of second density as the level of consciousness of plants and animals, clearly a quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of what we would think of as inanimate matter. You can think of third density as the level of consciousness of humans and cetaceans such as whales and dolphins. Again, a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of plants and other animals. You can think of fourth density as the level of consciousness of the social memory complex. Again, it would be as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one single group mind or consciousness, clearly a quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of an individual person. You can think of fifth density as whatever would be a comparable quantum leap above and beyond fourth density. You can think of sixth density as whatever would be a comparable quantum leap above and beyond fifth density. There is much more to it than that, and if you want to see it, take a look at our podcast episode on densities and dimensions. Otherwise, for now, suffice it to say that the entity known as Quo appears to be a group entity made up of three planetary consciousnesses: Ra at 6th density, Latwii at 5th density, Hatan at 4th density. First contact with Quo was made by the LNL research channeling team in 1986, almost 2 years after the end of the Ra contact in 1984. They have been channeled every month since then, up to present day, by the LNL research channeling team. You can find transcripts of those sessions at the LNL Research Conscious Channeling Library shown on your screen. Having said all that, let's take a look at what is the archetypical mind. If you want a more detailed explanation, see our podcast episode on the archetypical mind. For now, think of your mind as an iceberg, where the tip of the iceberg above water would be your conscious mind. These are the parts that you are aware of. The part of the iceberg just below the surface of the water would be your subconscious mind. The parts that you know exist but are not really aware of, not really able to see all that clearly. The parts farther below that would be your unconscious mind, the parts you really are not aware of and can't see at all. Similarly, it would appear that if you were able to look deeper below your individual conscious mind, you would find that it is part of what can be thought of as your racial mind, the collective subconscious mind of your racial or ethnic group from this planet, or quite possibly from another planet. Below that, it would appear that there is a planetary mind, a collective consciousness of this planet, a unified field of awareness that encompasses all living things on planet Earth. It is the consciousness of Mother Earth, or Mother Gaia. Below that appears to be the archetypical mind, the mind of our galaxy or a solar system. It's not real clear if archetypical mind is for the whole galaxy or just our solar system. When Ra or Quo use the term, it seems to mean a galaxy. But since a galaxy is made up of billions and billions of stars and solar systems, it seems unlikely that there isn't at least one other level between planet and galaxy. Eventually, if one goes deep enough into the unconscious mind, one comes to the universal or the cosmic mind, the mind of the consciousness of the creator of all creation. That is the central premise of the law of one, that all is one and that we are all basically brain cells in an infinitely intelligent cosmic mind. As we said earlier, the archetypical mind is made up of 22 images, 7 representing archetypes of the mind, 7 of the body, 7 of the spirit. The choice is a special 22nd archetype that doesn't belong specifically to any of those groups, but belongs to all of them. We have already done a podcast episode on archetypes of the mind, so I encourage you to check that out if you're interested. Otherwise, today we're going to be focusing on the 7 archetypes of the body as well as the choice. Before we get into that, it's worth noting that in session 77, question 23, Ra said, "We request that it be constantly kept before the mind as the candle before the eye, that each mind-body-spirit complex shall and should, and indeed must, perceive each archetype, if you use this convenient term, in its own way. Therefore, you may see that precision is not the goal. Rather, quality of general concept, complex perception is the goal. Meaning everybody's going to see different things in this, and that's the way it should be. But as we talk through these, we'll see if we can come to some general conclusions together shared. Panelists, anything I missed in all of that? Anything you'd like to add? But the Akashic records, they are indicating no. So having said that, let us take a look at the first archetype of the body, which is matrix of the body. In session 79, question 20 of the Ra contact, Ra said, the matrix of the body may be seen to be a reflection of the opposites of the mind, that is, unrestricted motion. The potentiator of the body, then, is that which, being informed, regulates activity. Session 78, question 10, Ra said, there was the awareness of two aspects of mind, of body, and of spirit that the significator could use to balance all catalyst. You may call these two the matrix and the potentiator. In session 92, question 34, Ra said, each potentiation which has been reached for by the matrix is recorded by the matrix, but experienced by the significator. The experience of the significator of this potentiated activity is, of course, dependent upon the acuity of its processes of catalyst and experience. And lastly, in session 87, question 28, Ra said, when the veiling process was accomplished, to the male polarity was attracted the matrix of the mind, and to the female, the potentiator of the mind. To the male, the potentiator of the body, to the female, the matrix of the body. Got a whole lot of good stuff here to see if we can unpack, and I've been talking long enough. Let's go straight to the panelists. Andy, what do you think? Any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, I love it. I think it's hard to consider the matrices without actually thinking about the potentiator as well. And if we look at them both together as well as the ones for the mind, you notice that when they talk about like the male and the female, and Crow often talks about the female principle as the one that's waiting for the reaching, and the male as the one that reaches, and hence it's for me hard to separate them. And it's beautiful because all these archetypes exist within us, and the matrix of the body, if we think of, say, the great ways, which according to Ra limbs the milieu, it's the body is like a vessel, so the matrix is what awaits the reaching. I don't know how any of that's relevant actually, but for me the study of this is just all the archetypes, they're just aspects of the self that if we can look at them and heal them, we then get to know the selves better and become more accepting, I think. Yeah. And
All of that
again,
makes perfect sense to me, for sure.
yeah, cool.
And it is worth noting that Ra did suggest as a course of study in looking at, I think they suggested two courses of study. In the one, you look at matrix of the body, matrix of the mind, matrix of the spirit as a group of three, and then look at potentiator of mind, body, and spirit together and do that continuously. But I think in the second group, they did suggest looking at the matrix and the potentiator together from each mind, body, and spirit. So I definitely agree. Matrix and potentiator seem to be very closely related in all the archetypes. What do you think, Neely? Anything to add? Neely, your mic is muted.
Apologies. Yeah, so if we want to simplify it a little bit when we're thinking about female and male, and again, just like Andy said, you have to look at both the matrix and the potentiator. The body, the matrix of the body actually is the exact opposite of matrix of the mind, in the sense that the matrix of the mind is kind of reaching but not making any movement, while the matrix of the body is in constant movement, right? We always breathe and the blood is circulating and the heart is pumping and sexual drive is happening. So it's always in motion. And when you kind of pair it with the potentiator, which is more like, okay, this is always in motion, but the potentiator would maybe gently direct it into a place of more balance.
Yeah, the balance part is no doubt important. They talked about the significator being used to balance all the catalyst. And it is interesting how the genders seem to be flipped in the archetypes of the mind and of the body. And the archetypes of the mind, the matrix of the mind is male, and the potentiator of the mind is female. Whereas in the body, it's reversed. The matrix of the body would appear to be female, and the potentiator of the body male. Any thoughts on why that may be, Neely, or I can pass it on to Guillermo? What do you think, Neely? Did you have any thoughts
Yeah,
on why those might be reversed?
there is a lot of reversal that's happening with archetypes of the body. It almost feels like with the body, the process is different. Okay, so the catalysts that reach the body are catalysts of sensation, they're catalysts of emotion, and all those catalysts will cause a change in the rhythmic or the perfection that the body is, right? The body comes into the world and it's perfect. It does its digestion, it does its heartbeats, it does its breathing perfectly. But those catalysts that will assault the body, whether they're pleasant or unpleasant, will kind of move it, sway it a little bit from, the balanced state, right? And then the heart will beat faster or will cringe. Something happens in the body. And the body being female, being feminine, will need something to guide it through those changes in balance.
Indeed. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing out the balance because that image is one of the images, one of the few images out of the 22 that I don't know what the fuck is going on there. That's a weird image. I do not know what to make out of that other than there is clearly a female figure seating on something resembling a throne. I don't know what the hell this thing is above her head, but it looks like a contraption shooting out stars. I don't know what to make out of that. But the balance, for sure, that is something that's very central and obviously easy to interpret in much the way that I think you just did for us. And I think we're going to be coming back to that again later. Guillermo, did you have any thoughts on anything so far?
Yeah, I kept thinking about the triad relationship before the veil that Ra talked about. So when we became complex as beings, it's spirit, body, mind, complex. Then before that, there was only the matrix, the potentiator, and the significator. And I was just having an image right now of sort of like the yin and yang being like the two primordial impersonal forces of the masculine and feminine. And sometimes like they dive into each other and they reverse and stuff. So I was thinking about the matrix and the potentiator switching between male and females among body, mind, spirit, and the significator just being the first personal agent through which all this is incorporated, and it's sort of like made sense of now through the veil, post veiling, when we become complex. So I was just pointing it out, and then everything you say, Neely and Andy, about the matrix, and the role of the female.
Yeah, I love the visual of the yin yang symbol. I think it relates to so much in the Law of One, and I hadn't thought of it in this context, but that certainly makes sense to me. Andy, was there something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I wasn't going to share my analogy, but I am now. And please don't believe anything I say, to see if it's true for you.
Viewers, you have been warned.
Yeah, but so the in the matrices of the well, in the archetypes of the mind, I had the analogy of baking a cake, and the matrix was like the idea, the origin of the spark for the cake, and then the potentiator is like the holder of the knowledge and the ingredients for the cake, and the matrix of the body, for me, the analogy that's most apt is if we see the matrix of the body as like a car, and we often refer to cars as like her, and it's a complex machine. The body is a complex machine, and everything has to be balanced in a car. It has to be tuned, tires have to be, pumped up and everything. And the car is awaiting the driver, which is the potentiator of the body, and the driver is the one that holds the knowledge of how to make the car run. It might be the mechanic, it might be the driver, it might be whoever is making the car function as a car.
Totally makes sense. And I think that is going to be a really good lead into the potentiator, which I'm thinking goes really well with your car analogy if you're going where I think you're going with it. Did anybody have any thoughts, comments on that?
So far, so good.
Yeah, go ahead.
So far, so good.
Nice. Yeah, I'm really fascinated by a couple lines here. The one in the second passage where Ross says this two aspects of the mind that the significator could use to balance all catalyst. That's the matrix of the potentiator used to balance catalyst. Obviously, again, reflected very clearly in the scales here, in the scales of justice. And again, if you didn't notice, this archetype is referred to as justice or balance. There's that part in the third passage where they said each potentiation that has been reached for by the matrix is recorded by the matrix but experienced by the significator. So the idea that the matrix and the potentiator are balancing catalyst and reaching for things, but it's the actual significator that experiences all this. That I find super interesting. And I'm guessing that applies to significator of the mind and the spirit as well. Did you guys have any thoughts on that? I really just kind of picked up on that on reading this through this time. Just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, the significator is kind of like the significant self, like it's the thing that continues from incarnation to incarnation, and it can relate to the body, it can relate to the mind, and definitely the spirit. And every catalyst, every experience, everything that's going on in our day-to-day life is actually experienced by this silent thing inside us that signifies who we are.
Great way to say it. Yeah. Yeah, I think of the archetypes, certainly of the mind, in terms of the sequence of how your unconscious mind receives sense data and processes it until your conscious mind is aware of what's happening. It's basically look at the iceberg. It's showing you what's happening in the lower levels of the iceberg before it emerges into your conscious mind in the above water part. And here, I think the same thing holds true. The archetypes of the body are showing how your body processes catalyst from the matrix to the potentiator to the catalyst to the experience. And then fifth would be the significator that actually experiences the catalyst. That's my impression of it. We'll see how that works out as we go. Should we go ahead and take a look at the, yeah, go ahead, Kerma.
Oh, yeah, just one last elaboration about all of this and the car analogy. So in this sense, I'd see the matrix of the body as being sort of like the abstract prerequisites of having a car. You sort of need some wheels. You need to respect certain laws, certain cosmic laws or like physical laws. You need to know about force, about torque and stuff. So same thing for the body. I think that's why it's veiled. It doesn't matter, if you play nice or you don't play nice, or if you're like agreeable or your name is whatever, or you have this type of hair. Doesn't matter. So there are certain fundamental theoretical prerequisites for having a body, a functioning body in all its spectrum. I don't think we have even begun to explore what are really the full capacities of. It's like an instrument or a car or a very sophisticated model, and this is the framework within which it works, which it can happen, and it doesn't really care what you think about it. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. Again, beautiful thoughts. Had not thought of it that way, but makes perfect sense to me. And I think might actually be a good segue into the potentiator. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Before we look at it, it is worth noting that there are two different images for the potentiator of the body. And it's worth noting for our viewers who weren't aware of this. Almost all of the images that we're looking at today came from the raw contact in the appendix of volume 2. But there is another set of images that can be found on lawof1.info. It is not from LNL Research, but it's created and hosted by Toby Wheelock, who I think is a friend of LNL Research. And Austin has confirmed that the image that you see on the right, the images that are at law1.info, are indeed from the Church of Light deck, which was in fact the one that Don used in the raw contact. The reason that you find a different set of images in the LNL research set is that they were not able to get permission from the Church of Light to publish those images in book form. So if you look at the two sets of images in both places, you'll find that 21 out of 22 of those images are more or less the same. Not really any big significant differences in what's in the images. The potentiator would be the exception. Clearly, these are two very different images. And since the one on the right is actually from the deck that Don used, that's the one that we're going to go with. So on session 78, question 11, Ross said, in the body, the matrix may be seen as balanced working or even functioning. Note that here the matrix is always active with no means of being inactive. The potentiator of the body complex then may be called wisdom, for it is only through judgment that the unceasing activities and proclivities of the body complex may be experienced in useful modes. The matrix of the mind is able to record incoming data, and through the potentiator once again is able to deliver to the archetype of the catalyst of the mind, the catalyst which shall become experience. In the archetypes of the body, the process is reversed, the matrix of the body being even functioning and balanced. This equilibrium is moved one way or another by the interaction with the potentiator of the body, which may be called informed judgment or wisdom. The matrix then is the blessing, is indeed manifested perfection, which moves it away from balance, and the pattern repeats in reversal until we see in the significator of the body the entity which is completely suspended upside down, thus showering the manifested body energy with its treasure as it falls from the clothing of this archetypical figure. Oh, and I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that second paragraph that I read actually came from a Quo channeling session on October 3rd, 1992. I'm seeing a lot in here that I think Neely mentioned already when we were discussing the matrix. Neely, do you mind if I come back to you? I want to elaborate on anything that you see here.
Yeah, I really like how Kuo talks about the potentiator of the body as, wisdom. So if the body is this unceasing perpetuum mobile thing that constantly works, then the potentiator is kind of like the inner admin that will move the body here and there. Just kind of like an example came to my mind about, let's say you're walking down the street and all of a sudden, and this is like a thing, you're walking down the street and it's a continuous movement and you're in your groove and you're just, going through the motions, and all of a sudden you notice a tree is about to fall right into your path. Then probably the potentiator of the body would be the one that will pump adrenaline into you and make you stop.
It's a great example. Great example. Guillermo, anything you want to add to that?
I have mathematics in mind.
Nice.
So to
Should note
further
for our viewers, Guillermo was a professor of mathematics.
I'm not a professor. I barely studied, but so to further deepen the core analogy, I'd see the matrix as a set of axioms. So certain things that you cannot prove, but that you take by faith. They just appear to be self-evident. But then what do you do with that? Then because they're just static. They just stay there, like a line like this and a line like this. They'll never cross even in infinity. That's just an axiom. You cannot prove it. But then you can create a whole theory with that. Then you have to know like how they how they play together. Like okay, so you assume this and you assume this, and you think the universe has this principle and this principle, but then how it all comes to life. How does the dance happens? And that's where you get wisdom when you embody them, when you put them into practice, when you get transformed by it, then they take a life on its own, and then you have a full theory of everything eventually. Well, that's the hope, right?
Nice. Yeah, beautifully said. And I did want to note for our viewers, in case they didn't know, that yes, the potentiator of the body is referred to as wisdom or the sage. Andy, anything you want to add?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite cards. I have ones that I like and ones that I'm not so keen on, and this has to be one of the ones that are in the top. And I think there's different levels of potentiator, to my mind, in terms of like um when meditating on this card, I find that if anyone has done like a Vipassana or any type of body scanning meditation, you'll find that sometimes you sort of become aware or you start to question, well, who's making my heartbeat? Who's regulating my temperature? So there's that level. And then you hear about like monks in the Himalayas who can regulate their body temperature and, slow down their heart at will. And then there's also the level of the potentiator that's kind of at the more mundane conscious level where, it's like, okay, I need to calm down. I'm going to start taking slower breaths and as we meditate, the different levels of potentiator then start to sort of merge, and we are then more able to be in touch with our bodies. But having said that, when we were working through the potentiator, well, the body archetypes, Quo did say repeatedly that you can be cured and not healed, and you can be healed and not cured. So, for instance, like Carla, she suffered really difficult physical catalyst. Um, so for me, she's an example of someone who's healed but not cured. So I feel very important that, just because you have a physical ailment, you don't punish yourself and say, well, it's because it's my own fault and it's because I'm not balanced, it's because I'm not spiritual enough, and that's why I have this physical ailment. I like some of them are sort of pre-incarnatively chosen. So be gentle with yourselves.
Yeah, well noted for sure, and something I'm guessing many in the loved one community can relate to. As I'm looking at the end of that first paragraph from the Raw passage and noting the part that says, it is only through the judgment that the unceasing activities and proclivities of the body complex may be experienced in useful modes. It seems like if we were going to go back to the car or vehicle analogy, it would be that if the matrix of the body is unrestricted, unregulated motion, and it is like a vehicle or a car, you think it would be fair to say that the potentiator is like the driver of the car, the person who regulates, controls, guides the motion of the car, Andy?
Yeah, I would say so on one level. But then so the potentiator could be like, well, the person who's like you're the one when you decide that you're hungry and you want to eat the meal, you're the one who like either cooks it or like puts the fork to your mouth with food on it. But then there's another level, a kind of deeper level where, there's a, another potentiator that you're not quite conscious of that's regulating your heartbeat and your temperature and things like that. Yeah, I would say.
Super fascinating, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how far the analogy goes through the rest of the archetypes of the body. Did anybody else have any other thoughts, reflections on this passage about the potentiator? We do have a second passage about the potentiator to look at. Neely, Guillermo, did you have any other thoughts to add on this slide? Sounds good. I did want to note for viewers at the end of the quo passage, they are talking about how that pattern repeats itself in reversal. This, as Neely described, I think the being in balance, having something that moves you out of balance and then moving back into balance, this pattern seems to repeat until, quo says, we see in the significator of the body the entity which is completely suspended upside down, thus showering the manifested body energy with its treasure as it falls from the clothing of this archetypical figure. This, of course, is referring to the significator of the body, also known as the hanging man or the martyr, and you can see the aforementioned treasures falling from his hands. We're actually going to be coming to that archetype in the very near future, but just wanted to give you a visual to hold in mind. Let's take a look at another passage. This is from September 23rd, 2001. Quo said, "In the system of the images which we of the Confederation have often spoken to your group concerning, the archetypal images are divided into three groups: those that pertain to the body, those that pertain to the mind, those that pertain to the spirit. In each of the three systems, there is a matrix, which is a still and unmoving structure that is a receptor web that has only very limited ability to act. What it can do is desire, it can reach. This is the nature of the matrix. It is essentially a structure into which catalyst will come, and through which catalyst will be processed into experience. In these three systems, the potentiator is that which is able to fertilize or to make fruitful the matrix. There is a dynamic between matrix and potentiator then. The basic dynamic is that in the mind, the reacher and the reached, and the body in constant motion and the controller of that body, and in the spirit, the unreaching, unhasting darkness of spirit, waiting for, hoping for, yearning for, and desiring information about itself. And out of the dynamic of that dark yearning comes the potentiator of the spirit, which is light." If I was smarter, I would have prepared those images from the matrix of the spirit to refer to. Unfortunately, I did not think of that. So viewer, go back to those sets images that I referred to earlier if you want to see them. Otherwise, yeah, fascinating stuff here. What do you think, Guillermo? Any thoughts, reflections on anything from this passage?
Uh, I'd say that we're talking about the driver. It reminds me mostly of in the Matrix, the architect. It's in the movie. The spoiler alert if you have not seen the Matrix, but I think everyone has. Uh, the Matrix is sort of designed to collapse on itself. It's built for eventually someone like Neo, or you could call it a significator, to eventually be born. Like a sort of Christ Messiah-like figure, and eventually just throw everything, not throw it down, but to come to the same door. It's like, okay, now it's like the end of the world and this thing will happen. It's sort of like a self-collapsing build-up. And I feel that this is, the stage really reminds me of that architect and operating upon like something vaster, which in the Matrix is the seer, the medium. How do you call it? The oracle.
Oracle? Yeah.
Yeah, the oracle. And as we saw in the previous slide, so the goal is to end up upside down, like fully still. It seems almost to be by design. I think there's something very deep in there that it's not fully meant to be like lightly discussed, but I think there's something really beautiful in that trilogy of things.
For sure. Yeah, I love the Matrix movies for sure. And I think many, if not most, in the Law of One community definitely see a lot of Law of One connections in there as well. The
Yeah,
whole
and sort of
idea
like
that
that
everything we
design
think
within
of
the
as
architect's
reality is
mind.
like a virtual reality, a simulation, if you will. What was that,
Ye-
Guillermo?
and one last thing, sorry, I cut you off, but the nature of the mind is that it's sort of like it desires to be discovered. It's sort of like it needs the architect's design to eventually open the way for the significator to discover it. It desires to be discovered. So that was all. It was just like flashing thought.
It's like the ring from the Lord of the Rings. The ring wants to be found. I'm not sure if that's a great metaphor for where we're at here. Neely, anything to add? I mean,
Yeah,
Andy,
again.
sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Um, yeah, yeah, I'm so excited to because we're about to start on the matrix and the potentiator of the spirit. I really want to talk about that right now, but I won't. I'll save that for the next podcast. But I would say this is exactly spot on. The body is like the car, with its engine running, and without the potentiator, the car could crash and be destroyed. Like they need to work together, but these are concepts that help us to sort of understand the self and the way these archetypes work, that they're tools for us to understand the self rather than sort of objective universal realities that we all need to agree on, and it's best approached that way. And I would say and I might have said this in the last podcast about the archetypes, the reason I found myself anyway, it was so hard to, or the archetypes seem incomprehensible when people get to it in the raw material, um, is because it's not because we're not clever enough to understand it. It's that we're not stupid enough because you can't grasp them with the mind. You have to, well, for me anyway, I had to completely release my intellectual understanding or my desire to know it intellectually and to meditate on it before I could come to terms with, what they mean. And the whole time, like, as long as I was trying to intellectualize them or understand them at that level, I just couldn't. I read so much about it, and it was like, yeah, okay, it looks really clever, and like it fed my ego as well. It's like, oh wow, aren't I clever to be able to understand this? But then at the same time, I wasn't retaining that knowledge. It didn't get to me,
Sure.
and yeah. So anyway, um,
Yeah, getting the knowledge is one thing, understanding it is another, and applying it, being able to apply it effectively is a whole another thing. So, yeah, I appreciate where you're at. And I think it reminds me of what we were saying about the archetypical mind and the introduction. I think it would be fair to say that the archetypical mind can be thought of the blueprint for our third density incarnations, and that if your incarnation was in fact a video game, and in many ways it is, then yeah, the archetypical mind is kind of like the programming or software behind it. And you don't really have to understand how the programming and the software works to be able to play a video game and enjoy it. But if you do understand how the programming or software works, then it can accelerate your progress in the game. You can get some good cheat codes. You can get some good tips that will help you progress faster through it and get to where you're going faster. And I think that's the way it is with all of these archetypes we're looking at. Nobody needs to understand how this stuff works to live from day to day. But if you devote some time and effort to studying them and learning about them and seeing how they work, then yeah, I think it can definitely help you accelerate your spiritual growth and evolution just from understanding how to play the game better, shall we say. Neely, anything to add?
Yeah, I want to build on what you and Andy just said, and to maybe insert a shameless plug here to our archetypical mind study group. I also found I'm very intellectual and I approach everything with my mind first. And I hit a stumbling block when studying the archetypes. And that's why essentially we created that group, because what we're trying to do in that group is study the archetypes through embodiment, study the archetypes through meditation. And I feel that it brought me so many additional layers of understanding that I cannot even spell it out in words, but it's kind of like an understanding that sits in the body. And this is exactly what we're doing here with when we're looking at archetypes of the body is how does our body embody and holds that understanding of what we're doing in life, right? And specifically to the quote here, um, I think we're seeing again that opposite kind of thing. So in the mind, the matrix is still and the potentiator is adding motion or adding an idea. In the body, the matrix is moving and the potentiator adds maybe restraint or maybe wisdom. And when we move into the spirit is also still in the dark. And the potentiator brings illumination, brings the light into understanding things. When we're going into the significator and we're seeing it hanging upside down, that's another reversal in a sense, right? So yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, Significator is definitely one of the 22 images that has stuck with me a lot that I do think of fairly often, probably on a daily basis at some point. And we'll talk about that more when we get to it. I did want to ask about what you guys make out of the diagram, since we've all talked about wisdom, judgment at some point. Uh, I didn't grow up Catholic or anything, but that sure looks like a Pope hat to me on that figure and seems to be sort of like a religious clerical figure. And insofar as theoretically the role of those figures are to be keepers of wisdom and sages and helping make wise decisions, then I can certainly see that in the image. I know Ross said whenever you see stars in the original image, you should disregard those because those were not in the original images that the raw social memory complex used. But otherwise, I don't know. What do you guys make out of that image? Do you see anything other than, say, a pope or bishop or some religious authority figure in there?
Yeah, actually, I was thinking when I was looking at the image, I was thinking about Egypt and I was thinking about maybe one of the dynasties that had the elongated
Mm,
skulls, and that might be just, the headdress of one of those. We don't really know, but the image does seem to me as somebody ancient and old and wise, definitely wise.
nice.
Yeah, for me, this card is about mastery over the self, and if we think, of say the Pope, not in a religious sense, but as in the sage, the one who has gone deep enough into the silence and can commune with God. So supposedly, the Pope in the Catholic Church has a direct line to God. But I kind of think, well, actually, who doesn't really?
Right.
But
Well,
it's
don't tell the Catholic Church that.
yeah,
They would not be keen on that perspective, as I
yeah.
understand it.
But yeah, it's about someone who is in connection with the one infinite creator all the time, and has reached that level of consciousness. But then I would also add that that we all already have that one, we already have that Pope awareness in us. We just need to sort of clear out all the clutter and the
Right.
conditioning and the
Right.
mental activity that's blocking it.
Right. Yeah, that all makes perfect sense. Guillermo, anything to add before we move on to the next archetype?
Because of the scepter, the elongated staff, that's the name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, with like a snake on top. It really reminds me of Hermes.
Mm.
And he's traditionally a psychopomp. So the dude that appears when you die or
Hmm.
when you take really high doses of DMT, I suppose. And then it just connects you to other realms. It's I'd see that I'd easily see him showing up when I die. Yeah.
Yeah, good eye picking out what appears to be serpent's head on top of this staff, which is being held in the right hand. And I believe in other images, if not this one, the staff has been referred to as like the staff of faith or will that one leads on when following the right hand path, the service to others path. It has been said in other passages we're not looking at that, yes, the right hand side of the person represents the right hand path or positive path or service to self, and the negative hand or left hand side represents the left hand path or negative service to self path. So looks good. And I think we are going to see more staffs before we are done today. Shall we go ahead and take a look at catalyst of the body? Let's do that. How about catalyst of the body? In session 81, question 11, the questioner asked, going back to the previous session, picking up on the 10th archetype, which is the catalyst of the body, or the wheel of fortune, which represents interaction with other selves. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This may be seen to be a roughly correct statement, and that each catalyst is dealing with the nature of those experiences entering the energy web and vibratory patterns of the mind-body-spirit complex. The most carefully noted addition would be that the outside stimulus of the Wheel of Fortune is that which offers both positive and negative experience. And in session 93, question 12, Ross said, catalyst being processed by the body is catalyst for the body. Catalyst being processed by the mind is catalyst for the mind. Catalyst being processed by the spirit is catalyst for the spirit. An individual mind-body-spirit complex may use any catalyst which comes before its notice, be it through the body and its senses, or through meditation, or through any other more highly developed source, and use the catalyst in its unique ways to form an experience unique to it with its biases. So much we could unpack here. I just wanted to note, maybe for starters, for viewers who are relatively new to the law of one, mind-body-spirit complex is the term that Ra and our friends in the Confederation refer to people. That's how you know you're talking to an extraterrestrial, because nobody on Earth would refer to people as a mind-body-spirit complex. But it does shed some light on why we're looking at 7 archetypes of the mind, of the body, and of the spirit, because from the point of view of our friends in the Confederation, what we call a person is a complex made up of a mind, a body, and a spirit. Something to keep in mind. What I also see interesting here is the part about outside stimulus from the Wheel of Fortune is that which offers both positive and negative experience. That's how I'm interpreting this wheel over here. I'm interpreting this as positive and negative experiences. And as the wheel turns, you have a choice of either, and you have a choice of how to respond to them. What do you think, Andy? Any thoughts on that or anything else?
Oh, should I carry on with my car analogy?
Yeah.
So in the analogy, the catalyst it is the environment in which the car is in. So for, and for me it represents seasonal cycles as well. So for instance, if your car is if you live near the beach, and then your car's going to get prone to rust, and then in winter you're going to have to like scrape off the ice, um and and the car needs to adapt to what's happening around it, or it won't be functional. And hence, and it's something you can't escape either. It's just cyclical. It's going to be there. And in terms of positive or negative, often, Ra and Pur have said that there really isn't, you know, um good or evil. There's just, the only kind of, when they say positive or negative, they mean service to others or service to self. And within each is the other. So whatever happens, we're actually just responding to this cycle. And our choice, our free will lies in where we put our attention and how we respond. And
Yeah, which I would think is something that we will see in the archetypes to come. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Did you still have a thought to finish?
no, I'm done anyway. Thank you.
That's good. Yeah, I have to admit, I had not actually thought about the car analogy past the matrix and the potentiator, past the vehicle and the driver. If I may, if I had to make a guess at it now, what you said makes sense to me. I think the other thing that comes to mind is catalyst of the body. If the matrix is the vehicle and the potentiator is the driver, the catalyst is whatever you see in the windshield, whatever you're seeing as you're driving down the road. That's the catalyst that you are called to respond to. Does that kind of go along with what you were thinking, Andy, or is that different?
Yeah, yeah, exactly that as well. It's like everything in the environment, everything in which the car resides. Yeah.
Right. That makes sense. Neely, anything to add?
Yeah, I really love the continuation of the car analogy. One thing that I would add to that is that the car cannot pick the catalyst that's being thrown at it. So that hence the wheel of fortune, right? It just whatever comes at you, this is your catalyst. But I really like the second one where Ra is talking about catalysts that are being processed by the mind are catalysts for the mind, and catalysts that are being processed by the body are for the body, and catalysts for this that are processed by the spirit are for the spirit. But I see another layer in all of it. You can essentially process every catalyst either on the mind level or on the body level or on the spirit level. So if I give an example here, let's say that you all of a sudden got a fever and you're lying in bed. So in the body, you can process the fever by sweating it out, and then the body returns kind of to the normal temperature. But then you can reflect on how you have been taking on too much in your life, and that fever is actually signaling you to stop. And that's kind of like a mind processing of the catalyst. Or you can look at the fever and lying down helpless in bed as this is the need to surrender to the creator. And that's a completely spiritual processing of the same catalyst, essentially.
Yeah, fascinating. And that makes sense to me. I mean, if you think of all the sense data that you're taking in from your environment, some of it you could be responding to and processing mentally. Some of it you could be experiencing and process physically, like touching a hot burner or something like that. And other parts of it you could be responding to spiritually. And I'm not totally sure how that works, but I'm sure that it's true. What do you think, Guillermo? Anything to add?
I think it's really nice the seasons analogy. It reminds me of crops. And I think that that plays very nicely with the archetypes of the body, especially when we look at the transformation, the death card, that seems like it's a farmer just like collecting the harvest, which is really funny because then it plays really well with, with the loved one. And I think, you know, we naturally are like trees and we produce spores. Well, like that's mushrooms, but we produce seeds and we just throw them, and most of the time unconsciously. It could be like seeds of, to go back to the Vipassana, and the seeds of passion or seeds of cravings or seeds of aversions or what they call sankaras. And then you get a big tree that eventually grows up and that totally overpowers you, and then you need to reprocess, or you plant some eventually more conscious seeds, when you decide not to react, or When you collect more wisdom, then I think it's a part of the plan. We're supposed to just throw seeds away, then see what happens, then experience it, then wisdom builds up, and then eventually we discover what's really going there. But it's really nice the seasons analogy, behind the wheel analogy.
Yeah, I appreciate your saying that. It certainly seems to go well with what's in the last part of the last passage, where however you process catalyst, each uses this catalyst in their own unique way to form an experience unique to it with its biases. The word unique appears so many hundreds, thousands of times in channeling transcripts, noting that every mind, body, spirit complex is a unique person, and that we could all be in the same room at the same time, but we're all like processing the catalyst coming in different ways, unique to us and to the biases that we have already developed, either from this childhood or from previous incarnations or whatever. I'm curious to hear folks' thoughts on the graphic. It seems like an odd thing to show to ancient Egyptians. I'm not sure if there is any contraption like that that has ever existed anywhere. I'm certainly not aware of one. The only Wheel of Fortune I'm aware of is the one on TV. Does anybody have any thoughts on that image? Like any interpretations of anything you see, like of the two serpents at the bottom or the Sphinx-like figure at the top?
I'd say that that's exactly where my idea from the Vipassana thing came. The dragon I'd see as the cravings, when you develop like thoughts or like behaviors of passion and you just plant your seeds and then they grow through the seasons. The other one seems to be like kind of like avoiding things, the one on the right. It seems like when you plant seeds of aversion, when you have like a challenge and you don't want to do it, and then you contract and you avoid, and then it just becomes a pattern of avoidance, of self-avoidance, of avoiding of everything, and then it just grows and grows and grows until it gets out of control. And eventually, through the spinning of the wheel and the different seasons, and as you mature and you collect wisdom, then the serpents can eventually rise, and you can choose not to react, I guess. And then you get, because the Sphinx seems to be something more stable. It seems to be, it seems like the wheel is spinning, but the Sphinx is staying put. I don't know. That's the impression I'm
Do you
getting
think
here.
it's moving the spear? Because my interpretation, like I said, was that the two figures on the wheel represent positive and negative catalysts, shall we say, and that you can kind of picture this thing spinning as they are climbing along. And I imagine the Sphinx-like figure at the top using the spear against what it perceives as a negative catalyst. And I don't know what it would do with a positive catalyst other than not attack it with a spear. You guys have any thoughts on that? Are you seeing that similarly or differently?
For me, this invokes the matrix of the spirit very much so, because the kind of devil character that's heading downwards is the matrix of the spirit. And it's like in this incarnation, we like the shiny things. We like to think of ourselves as pure and morally upstanding and full of light. And it's like there's that aspect of us that want to rise. And and the Sphinx is like, no, not yet. You got to back down and face your demons first. You're not allowed up here until you've done that. um yeah, so
Good
and
eye
the
on the
serpent.
matrix of the spirit. I had not picked up on that, but I assume that's the one you're referring to, right? The one on the left? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I also think, like, every time I see serpents in the archetypes images, I always think of what Jesus said about being wise as serpents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they did explain the serpent that appeared in other archetypes, and unfortunately, I'm blanking off the top of my head. Generally, I didn't think serpents were perceived as bad things, like maybe people in Christian traditions have grown to think of snakes as evil. I thought they were representatives of wisdom and of the Kundalini experience and such. Do you have any thoughts, Neely, on anything you're seeing in that image?
Not right now.
That's good. I believe I do actually have a second passage on catalyst of the body. Anybody have anything they wanted to say on this passage before we change? Sounds good. This was from October 26, 2019, and Quo said, "The catalyst of the body is that which is usually experienced when the mental faculties of the mind-body-spirit complex have not appropriately apprehended the nature of catalyst that has come before it. When this occurs, then there is oftentimes the giving over of the catalyst of the mind to that of the body and some form of physical maladjustment, shall we say, or dis-ease. This is in order that the mental faculties may then have a second opportunity to look upon this catalyst that was first omitted and see there where there is information to be gained. This type of experience is quite common amongst most of the population of your planet that suffer the physical ailments that continue to repeat themselves in attempt to bring to light that which has remained in the shadows of the mind." Super fascinating what they're talking about here, and seems to reflect on many things that I've seen, for example, in Chinese medicine, where they talk about how different emotions or difficulties one is having with these sorts of catalysts can be reflected in diseases or ailments of the heart or the spleen or the lung or the liver or the kidneys, as shown on your screen. That is, of course, the central premise to a best-selling book on The Body Keeps the Score, which talks a lot about how traumas and things related to the mind and the brain can manifest themselves in the body. Any thoughts, reflections on anything here, Neely?
Yeah, I really love that you picked this specific quote from Kuo, because it reminds me of conversations that Dawn and Ra had around cancer, and how Ra had said that cancer is so easily cured just by making that switch in mind and understanding what it is that it's trying to tell us. So essentially, this opens up a lot of hope towards instantaneous or spontaneous healing of things that are physical and in the body. And it's also nice that Kuo is essentially telling us, hey, dude, if you were thick enough not to get the catalyst that we threw at you, you will see it in your body. It will manifest in your body. So I think it's a wonderful, wonderful passage.
Yeah, and for sure, I'm guessing there are many in the Law of One community who can think of times in their lives when they have suffered physical ailments or diseases, shall we say, that seemed related to something they were going through mentally, psychologically, emotionally, trauma-wise, or otherwise. Guillermo, anything to add? Any thoughts here?
Well, I was thinking about the Sphinx and relating to what we just previously said. In the Egyptian mythology, it's a big fella that protects something. It's a guardian, and it seems to be safe keeping some sort of step, some sort of like when you die and there's the guardians, like the actual guardians, and then you go through the stair of light until you can hold it no more, and that differentiates which density your spirits comes back to. So the seasons and the cycles and the 25,000 cycles and the 75,000, it really reminds me of that. It's very interesting that you have the matrix of the spirit there and you have to face it, and if you don't face it then you don't go. Doesn't matter how much of a kind soul you are, if you have not faced your own demons then you won't go. And if in this incarnation you refuse it, then it'll just show up in your body until you face them. And that's exactly what Neil is saying.
Yeah, super important point that I think could be of benefit to anyone for whom this resonates. Andy, anything to add?
So much, but I'll keep it short. And please don't believe anything I say. Do you mind just jumping to the next
archetype.
slide about the Chinese medicine,
Oh, yeah, sure.
or is that the previous one? Yeah, so I found when I was going through the quotes, and at the moment I've got this project going where I'm going through all the archives and coding them using qualitative analysis software based on the archetypes. And what I found was that quote often use emotion and spirit interchangeably. So sometimes they say, your thoughts, as in the mind, your your sensations and your emotions, as opposed, and that kind of made me think that, actually perhaps emotions are the way that the spirit communicates with us, because of like things like joy and anxiety, sadness, anger, these emotions um come to us in the gut in the form of sort of gut feelings, which if we observe our bodies, have their physical manifestations. And if we think of the word disease and the word unease, when we have some emotion, sometimes there's a sense of unease, even in joy, like you can get indigestion from being too happy, right? And if we don't deal with the unease, there's a cumulative effect which then leads to dis-ease.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. That all makes perfect sense to me. And again, all good stuff to think about on your day-to-day level anytime you are experiencing some sort of physical ailment or dis-ease or unease, whether you think there might be something related to unresolved, unbalanced catalysts that you could be working with. Does anybody have any thoughts, reflections before we take a look at our next archetype? I should
Yeah.
note, I've been looking at the clock and we've already been going for a fair bit over an hour already, and we're not even halfway through this. So, viewers, you have been warned. This is probably going to be a longer than usual episode. So, don't feel like you got to watch the whole thing in one sitting. Whenever you're ready, just pause it, put this in your watch later YouTube watch list, and come back to it when you're ready. But hopefully, you will find that it is worth watching the whole thing. Shall we go ahead and take a look at our next archetype? This is on experience of the body. In session 81, question 12, questioner asked, the 11th archetype, the experience of the body, represents the catalyst that has been processed by the mind-body-spirit complex and is called the enchantress because it produces further seed for growth. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. Love the conciseness of Ra compared to the verbosity of Quo, shall we say. In session 49, question 6, Ra says a little bit more. Ra says, we have two types of energy. We are attempting then as entities in any true color of this octave to move the meeting place of inner and outer natures further and further along or upward along the energy centers. The two methods of approaching this with sensible method are first, the seeding within oneself of those experiences which are attracted to the entity through the South Pole. Each experience will need to be observed, experienced, balanced, accepted, and seeded within the individual. As the entity grows in self-acceptance and awareness of catalyst, the location of the comfortable setting of these experiences will rise to the new true color entity. The experience, whatever it may be, will be seated in red ray and considered as to its survival content and so forth. Each experience will be sequentially understood by the growing and seeking mind-body-spirit complex in terms of survival, then in terms of personal identity, then in terms of social relations, then in terms of universal love, then in terms of how the experience may beget free communication, then in terms of how the experience may be linked to universal energies, and finally in terms of the sacramental nature of each experience. Super interesting passage, and I love the reference to the energy centers. For those who are not familiar with chakras or energy centers as they are known in Ra, yeah, the root chakra or red ray does in fact deal with survival. Orange ray deals with personal identity. Yellow ray in terms of social relations, how you relate to groups of other individuals. Green ray, heart chakra, deals with universal love. Blue ray deals with how we communicate, free communication. Indigo ray with how the experience can be linked to universal energies. And finally, in the violet crown chakra, the sacramental nature of each experience. Super fascinating. Certainly makes me think of Kundalini or rising spiraling energy, which has been likened to the snake that we mentioned to earlier. Any thoughts, Guillermo, on anything from this set of passages?
It's very interesting how it follows up from the quotes that you just shared before about the catalyst, that especially specifically mentioned that the catalyst process through the body is the one that has not successfully been processed by the mind or the spirit, then it falls into the body eventually. I think there's other ways for the catalyst to enter the body. I think even when you process it, then it's a refined catalyst that enters the body, but I think it in a proper way. Uh, if if unconsciously not perceived, then the catalyst of the body is when it enters the body and it's the catalyst is just so intense. We're immersed in seas of passions and aversions, and we want this or we don't want that, and we hate that, and then it just grows out of control. And I think that's represented by the untamed lion. And not that in this thing it is tame, it hasn't been castrated, but it has been gently and lovingly made a companion by what I think Andy referred to me the other time might be might have a relationship to the catalyst of the mind. I think that this lady has something to do with it, and I'm really interested in hearing further about it later on.
Super fascinating thought. And I'm certainly glad she's not castrating the lion because that would be a really different image, I think, to try to picture of. But yeah, I think I'm seeing it the same way you do, if I understood what you were saying correct. I'm kind of thinking of the wild lion as the raw, untamed catalyst, the sense data that we are assaulted with at every moment of our waking days. And the enchantress is somehow able to tame that wild catalyst and make it something that can be experienced without being hurt. Is that how is that what you meant, Guillermo, or were you seeing it a different way?
Yeah, it's been better. I like it.
Nice. Andy, anything to add?
Yeah, the this image is fantastic for kind of illustrating the third density experience. In the journey of souls, and Crow says as well that the the physical body is a second density animal that in effect we're renting, you know, and actually it has its own mind that we call the ego. And if we're able to sort of coax the ego, because I feel like the ego is how the second density body communicates with us, and we can then also rule over the ego rather than have the ego rule over us and come to terms with that, then we'll be much more able to navigate this experience that we're having here. And and for me, the point is not to kill the ego. I've got an enormous ego, it's like an elephant. And it's like, well, I need this elephant to continue existing, but am I riding the elephant, or is the elephant riding me?
I hope not. That probably wouldn't be so great. I would definitely prefer the former than the
Yes,
latter. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And to carry on the car analogy, I think this archetype is about the relationship between the car and the owner or the driver. So, there's so many of us, women especially, who find it very difficult to accept our own bodies. And even men, like, we often don't treat our bodies with respect, and and look after them, or we don't actually have a relationship, I feel, with our bodies, a lot of us. We don't talk to it and we don't listen to it. We use it like a car that we don't look after. But then there's like people who love their cars, and and clean it, and talk to it and give it a name. And I think that love, when it's allowed to manifest, will impact our third density experience as well. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, beautifully said. I appreciate it. I think going back to something you were saying earlier about how our physical bodies are basically a second density animal that offered itself to be a vehicle for our third density mind and spirit to inhabit and to use to do whatever it is that we came to this incarnation to do. It's a beautiful way to think about it. And I suppose, to go back to the car analogy, yes, if you could treat your body either as well as you take care of your car, or better if you're not that good at maintaining your car. It is a great analogy. And yeah, it reminds me, we refer to my body this and my body that, which is inherently suggesting that you are not your body. You're something other than your body if you're referring to my body as my body. It's interesting that we are something riding around in a meat suit that offered itself for us to have whatever we're experiencing. What do you think, Neely? Anything to add?
I just love the relationship that you guys are suggesting to cultivate with our bodies, because our bodies, yes, they are second density animals, but the way that I look at, the things that the body does when you're in certain catalyst, the body is really trying to protect us. The body is loyal, and it's really trying to do its job. And berating the body or suppressing whatever the body is trying to tell us is just not respecting the body. So I'm thinking of an example, like when we're looking at how the catalyst goes through all those energy center in our body. So let's say that somebody insulted us, and the first place it hits you is your red ray, like your survival. What's happening? Am I under attack? Right? So you're thinking like that, and then there's some adrenaline and some things that are happening in your body to try to protect you from this attack. But then when you stop to think for a minute and you try to tame it a little bit and figure out what's going on, then your orange ray comes online, and the orange ray is like anger. How dare he talk to me like that, right? So you're feeling it in your gut and you're angry, and we might attack back. But if we're taming that, then we go up into the yellow ray, and the yellow rays, uh-oh, some other people heard him insult me. I wonder what they think about me, right? And then, okay, then you take a deep breath and it goes up to the heart, and you're like, oh, this person is probably very wounded that he said whatever that is that he said. So let's be more gentle and more kind in our reaction or our response to it. And then you go up to the true communication. You go up to the throat, and you're like, okay, so how do I say this clearly? And you might feel your throat literally physically constrict when you're trying to phrase your response, and those things are happening pretty quickly within the body, right? And then you will come up with the truth, or you will say, oh, what you said just really hurt me, or what you said was not really true, I think, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes up and it goes up, and it changed your entire, violet ray. The color changed because there was a processing that went through your body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. Really appreciate it. And yeah, cannot emphasize enough the importance of communication. If I was going to guess, I would say, the blue ray throat chakra is probably one of the most underappreciated chakras. It doesn't get the attention that the green universal love chakra or the third eye spiritual woo-woo chakra gets. And yet, yeah, so many of the problems I think that we experience either with other individuals or other groups of individuals really relate to our difficulty or inability to communicate the love and light of the one infinite creator as we would like to. Oh, anybody else have anything to add on this archetype before we take a look at another one? Sounds good. Well, let us take a look at Significator of the body. On February 13th, 2010, Quo said, "The body is an instrument of sacrifice. When a brand new life is brought forth into your world, it has chosen to leave a place of full awareness where all is known that can be known in order to plunge itself into the thoroughgoing system of illusions that you call physical life. Implicit in that infant advent into the world of earth is its eventual departure from that same earth world. It is a time spent in what this instrument would call the valley of the shadow of death. Being born into physical incarnation is that which is done responsibly and carefully, with great thought and for a reason. Entities such as those to whom we speak do not tumble into life with no thought for the shape and texture of the life to come. Many of those, indeed virtually all of those who have come into incarnation in the past little while, have done so with the great hope of being able to be part of the good upon planet Earth at this time. It is a time when, as this instrument would put it, the fields are ripe with harvest. And as incarnation is contemplated, there is the hope in each breast that they may be harvesters, that they may know and see and understand the centrality of love, that they may reach out during their time here to change darkness to light, sadness to joy, fear to love, dissension to unity, anger to peace, that they may be agents of the truth which every cell of every body carries within it, and which with the illusion of third density earth is veiled from the conscious awareness of each person who has chosen to come into incarnation." There's more to this passage, and we'll get to that in a minute, but there's so much to look at and appreciate here. I would love to hear our panelists' thoughts on it. Again, really love and appreciate the poetry of language that often comes through quote channelings that don't usually get so much from raw channelings. It's beautiful visuals. What do you think, Andy? Any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, this card for me is it's not just sacrifice. For me, it's also service. It's the whole experience of of service for the creator to know itself and experience itself. And I kind of like to think when I'm embodying or meditating on this archetype, I like to think of myself not as a human body hanging upside down, but as like a piece of fruit growing on a tree that, you know, like slowly buds and then grows and, you know, blossoms in the sun, the petals fall off and I turn into fruit, and then the fruit falls down and decays, and that decay generates more life and creation, and it all goes back to the creator to experience itself and to know itself, and that is the service that this card represents to me. And should I go back to the car analogy again? So this is like the car as service, you know, it deteriorates over time, it needs to be repaired, parts need to be replaced. Our bodies are constantly regenerating as well, you know, it needs rest. And if we have a car that, let's say, we keep in the garage and just polish and never use, and it doesn't provide the service, then it's not really a car in the sense, it's just an object, you know. And for a car to be a vehicle that's functional. It needs to be used. It needs to be in service.
Nice. Yeah, I think I am here realizing why I had not in my mind like tried to figure out the whole car analogy all the way through, because to me I was thinking of the potentiator as the driver, the person who controls the regulation of the car, and yet clearly they have said that the significator of the body is the thing that experiences all the catalysts from the previous archetypes, and in that case it seems like it could be the driver. I'm really not sure. I think the thing that catches my attention most, which I think you alluded to, is the very first phrase where they say the body is an instrument of sacrifice. Clearly, the man hanging upside down is not in a natural orientation with regard to the planet. So the body, your animal body, your physical body, has sacrificed itself in order for you to go from one infinite creator being down to this finite little thing housed in this tiny little body, floating on a speck of dust in a sea of specks of dust in the universe. That's an amazing sacrifice. All to help, again, as they said, to help with the harvest and to help the planet and help others to grow and evolve. It's a beautiful sacrifice full of meaning. Any thoughts, anything to add on that, Neely?
Yeah, I'm looking at the card and I'm seeing the significator as an image hanging upside down, and I'm thinking about the reversal of the difference between being in time space, so having full knowledge but not being in a body at all, being like an energy, but then going into the body, and all of a sudden you are under the veil, you have absolutely no knowledge, groping in the dark. So that's kind of like one of the things that this reversal of the image represents for me. And the other thing that's noticeable is that by hanging upside down, there's some coins or something that's falling from the image. And I see the coins as the fruits of your labor, and it connects directly to the harvest. So you're hanging upside down and you're hoping that whatever, meager coins that fall off your hands are actually the complete fruit that's needed for you to be harvested to the next stage.
Beautifully said. And I think we will see that in the next half, in the second passage that we look at. Anything to add, Guillermo?
I think in some tarot decks they also call it the drowned man because he's sentenced to death and then he just gets drowned
Oh, interesting.
in the water.
Right.
And but it's spot on, Neely. I think the significator, like I think I was initially referring, in the primordial triad, then the veils comes and the significator just goes down below the veil. I think it's as Alex Gray put it in a post he made recently about a painting into the year 2000. It's then an artist is like an upside down tree with leaves in the world and the roots reaching high in heaven, something like that. And it's perfectly unnatural for a tree to be upside down, for some physical material thing to be upside down. However, as the body sacrifices to the grander purpose of things, and as the vessel gets more and more tuned for the winds of the spirit, then it comes to this specific configuration, which is referred to as the ceasing of the ups and to and fro's of the balancing of the matrix and the potentiator. Eventually, it comes at a still, like we were referencing in the beginning. This is the configuration through which the body gets initiated beyond the veil. I think that in some cards they say that, well, you drown, but yeah, but then you're reborn, you appear from the other side of the water, like actually straight up, which is a paradox.
Beautiful image. Never seen that before. Have to take a look for it, but I can certainly see the connections there. I think maybe one other thing that strikes me as I read this passage is the first sentence in the second paragraph, where they say, being born into physical incarnation is that which is done responsibly and carefully with great thought and for a reason. Entities such as these to whom we are speaking, like us, do not tumble into life with no thought for the shape and texture of the life to come. I think it's so easy for many who don't really have any broader spiritual understanding to say, I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be born in this crazy, fucked up world. And it's something I can certainly sympathize with. But I guess what Ra and Kuo are saying here is no, you may have just forgotten it and you're waiting to remember that. No, you did indeed choose to come here. And as Kuo said before, there were way more souls that wanted to incarnate than there were bodies that can hold them. So everyone who is incarnated on this planet right now, as they said, fought tooth and nail to have the honor and the privilege to be able to be on this planet, specifically at time of harvest, so that we can help with the harvest and help, as we would say, change darkness to light, sadness to joy, fear to love, dissension to unity, anger to peace. That is indeed the mission that we all came here to accomplish. And the challenge is in remembering it and acting on it. Anybody else have any other thoughts on anything from this slide before we look at a continuation from this passage? Sounds good. Later on in the session, Kuo says, we would say to the one known as T1, whoever was sitting in at that session, that it is a sacrifice of tremendous meaning. It is not the idiot play of chaotic chance, nor is it the soulless repetition of destiny, in which free will has no part. It is a dance of the entity that is upon the wheel of life, enjoying the darkness and the light, the dark night of the soul, and the illusion of epiphany, moving from transformation to transformation. It is the hope and the intention of the soul before entering into the valley of the shadow, that within these shadows, paradoxes, and mysteries of life as experienced upon your planet, there will be that moment of remembrance of why this sacrifice was undertaken. And it is hoped that that moment of remembrance may so illumine the soul within incarnation that the remainder of the incarnation will be one of joy, peace, and bliss. For the mists have been penetrated, the mystery has been solved, and the answer to sacrifice is love. For love moved each of you to embrace this experience, this parenthesis in eternity, as the one known as Joel calls it. And within this tiny shape of a life, this momentary span of your years, once you have awakened to the love within you, you have the opportunity so to shape and intend and offer your life that the riches of that love shall spring forth anew every day, falling like coins from your pockets and turning your world into heaven. Such a beautiful passage. I was not sure if I was going to be able to read it without getting choked up on it. I got super choked up on it as I was reading through it yesterday and getting ready. It's just such a beautiful use of words, the idea of hoping. Everyone hopes at some point that they will remember in the process of incarnation why they came here. And it's such a beautiful thing that whoever is watching this on video, presumably you're watching this because you remember, and you now have the ability that the remainder of your incarnation can be one of joy, peace, and bliss. For the mists have been penetrated, the mystery has been solved. The answer to sacrifice is love, and that's your guiding light for the rest of your incarnation. What do you think, Neely? Any thoughts, reflections on this?
I'm still fighting the tears back because it was just such a beautiful passage, and you know, first referring to our life here, which seems so long and full of suffering, as parenthesis in eternity is just, I love it. I love it because it puts everything into perspective. We're living in the end of days, the end of times, as Jonathan Yu had said, and it's difficult. It really is difficult. But I know that we cannot completely penetrate the veil while we are here, but those little points of remembrance is what's holding us. You know, it's what makes it all livable, what makes it all worth it. And this is something that I carry in my heart, and I just hope everybody carries this in their heart so it helps them during those dark days.
Yeah, so much appreciated, especially this part about here. It's a sacrifice of tremendous meaning. It's not the idiot play of chaotic chance. It's not the soulless repetition of destiny in which free will has no part. One could easily be forgiven for thinking, assuming that that's the way it is. What a beautiful thing to be able to see and realize that no, it's not random. It's not a waste of time. You came here for a beautiful and divine and holy purpose. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to dedicate each day, each moment of each day, as much as you can to that. What do you think, Guillermo? Anything to add?
It's a nice slide.
It's beautiful, isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, truly. Uh, I I, uh, I see the chaos, the idiot chaos, and the soulless destiny, repetition of destiny as being like the two sides of things. So we talked about the potentiator and wisdom, you know. I was almost referring it to like the architect that has everything planned with great mathematical precision, perfect mathematical precision. And then there is the oracle, which is sort of like the hack, the thing that cannot be calculated, that cannot be incorporated, that seems to be just like noise or randomness, but it collapses the whole equation if not taking into account. And it seems to be neither of them. It seems to be their offspring that really like brings the game to an end. You know, the Neo of the Matrix that is neither one or the other, but they just he's there sort of by chance, but also by careful planning and somehow makes something that was not planned and yet deeply desired by everyone. And yeah.
So beautifully said. Yeah, for sure. I should have made the pop quiz about the Matrix. Unfortunately, spoiler alert, it is not about the Matrix, but man, I'm going to have you on for that one next time for sure. Oh, what do you think, Andy? Anything to add?
Uh, yeah, it, I like the parentheses in eternity, and also since I've sort of done my first round or of working through it, the archetypes meditatively, I've often thought of this incarnation as a a visit to a theme park, and there's all these rides, and it's all about like, and some rides are scary and some rides are not, and some rides you don't want to get on but you can't get off because you're already on it and it started, and it's all experience, and and actually this, even the sacrifices can feel joyful for me when I just take the attitude, and I just say thank you for the opportunity to serve. May everything I do be an act of love. And I think there's a point at which, when difficulty, like difficult catalysts come along, it's like, oh wow, where's this gonna take me? You know, and it's all a fun ride. It's all kind of really exciting, right? What is this going to reveal to me about myself?
Indeed. Yeah, so beautiful. As you were speaking, I was reminded. I said earlier that this is one of the few archetypes that I think about a lot, often on a daily basis, and I do. Oftentimes, the one of the takeaway lessons that I get from this archetype is that your whole incarnation is a sacrifice. Everything that you did in coming down to this valley of death is a sacrifice, meaning everything that you do in any given moment on any day could, if you choose to make it to do it consciously, to bless it, offer it as a sacrifice to Creator, offer it as a sacrifice in service to others, bless it as a sacrifice to Mother Earth and for fourth density, I sometimes offer it as a sacrifice for any karma that I've carried over from previous incarnations. If I'm going through a hard time, I'll say, please, I bless this. I offer this as a sacrifice for any harm that I've done to others in previous incarnations, and I hope this sacrifice can be used to help balance that karma and to ask for forgiveness. So, just a thought for viewers in case you find that's something that you could make part of your daily practice at some point. Andy, anything to add?
Yeah, just a question. What is it that's being sacrificed, do you think?
Anything. I mean, any experience of pain you experience, you could say that's me being the hanging man, hanging person. I'm experiencing this suffering, but I'm doing it for a reason. I'm doing it as an offering to in service to others. Is how I would often frame it. Or it could be a positive thing. It could be a great thing and say, hey, wow, this is great. I bless this and I offer this also. I sacrificed a lot to come here to do this, and now I'm offering this back to Creator.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question? I'm not sure if that's what you were
I
asking.
mean, I'm thinking, like, is it a sacrifice in terms of an opportunity cost? Like, it's like, is it like you're doing a college degree and sacrificing like time spent earning money working somewhere else to get a huge debt and
Totally.
like yeah. And
Literally anything could be. I think the thing that says it for me is at the very beginning, they said the body is an instrument of sacrifice. Just the fact that you chose to come down from fourth, fifth, sixth density, we all are the one infinite creator. That is the central premise of the law of one, that we are all, in fact, one infinite creator. So we sacrificed a lot in losing that infinite power and ability and knowledge to come down and be these stupid fucking meat puppets that we are for the amount of time that we're schlepping around on this planet. So that means literally anything that you do and everything that you do in any given moment of any given day could be considered as a sacrifice. It's the difference between knowing that consciously and offering it consciously versus not being conscious of it and just trudging through your life without really just trying to get through the day, I think. I don't know, does that make sense to you, Andy, or anyone else on the panel have any thoughts on that?
The sacrifice of the choice.
For sure.
The fool makes a big sacrifice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which is why they said it's such an important archetype. Yeah. If nobody else has any thoughts or anything on this. I was reminded, and Andy was saying about going to school and college and everything. I was thinking of all the women who bear children. What a huge sacrifice that is. Most women I know, their bodies have changed a lot before and after pregnancy, and in so many ways gave up a lot. That was a huge sacrifice that you did of your body to bring those new lives into the world and to help raise them into this crazy end of the world, end of third density, beginning of fourth density world. What a huge sacrifice that is to do that. Everything one does. Like I said, literally anything that you do, anything that you're doing at work, probably not enjoying that, you can offer that as a sacrifice as well. Andy?
yeah, it's sacrifice. And I kind of also want to add, like, I don't think that there's any sacrifice that comes without a reward as well, though.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And there's one more thing I wanted to point out. Not just this card in particular, but I find for myself that in any archetype image where there's like a big body of water, for me, there's a big connection to time space and the kind of metaphysical realm, and it's worth considering.
Nice. Had not thought of that, but yes, that totally makes sense. And viewers, we do notice that the guy hanging upside down does have his legs crossed. We are not unaware of that, and we are aware that there is actually a lot of meaning to that, which I think we're going to get into in our next archetype. The whole crossed legs, right angles. Anybody have anything last to add before we take a look at the next archetype? let's go ahead and look at transformation. Transformation of the body. Session 81, question 13. The questioner says, we have already discussed the significator, so I will skip to number 13. Transformation of body is called death, for with death, the body is transformed to a higher vibration body for additional learning. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct and may be seen to be additionally correct, and that each moment and certainly each diurnal period of the bodily incarnation offers death and rebirth to one which is attempting to use the catalyst which has offered it. Session 95, question 27. Ra says, the observation of the right angles and their transformational meaning is most perceptive, O student. Each of the images leading to the transformations of mind, body, and spirit, and ultimately to the great transformative choice, has the increasing intensity of increasing articulation of concept. That is to say, each image in which you find this angle may increasingly be seen to be a more and more stridently calling voice of opportunity to use each resource, be it experience as you now observe or further images, for the grand work of the adept, which builds towards transformation using the spirit's bountiful shuttle to intelligent infinity. Let's get into the discussion of the right angles a little bit later. For now, I'm really fascinated by this part in the first passage where they say, each moment and certainly each diurnal period of the bodily incarnation offers death and rebirth. What a fascinating way to think of when you go to bed at night. In a way, that's a little death. And when you wake up the next morning, that's a rebirth. Every day offers a death and rebirth experience to the one who is aware of it, thinks of it that way. What a beautiful thought. Again, what do you think, Guillermo? Any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
Well, we were talking about seasons, ripening seasons, and the seeds that would spray, and the trees that grow, and the sacrifice of the choice that you make through experience and accumulation of wisdom that eventually result in transformation, in death, rebirth. I think this card just puts the whole conversation we just had together, because I cannot not talk about the right angle of the significator who is being sentenced to death. He's taking the position of the ankh, which is like the crux with a little whoop, circle of that,
Yes, indeed.
which is highly associated, with the elevation of the spirit energy in the body, the incorporation. But that only happens when you collect you gotta collect that. It's like you play Pokemon and then you collect your Pokemon, or you play like that farm thing and then you collect your harvest. So you gotta plant the seeds and you gotta not plant other seeds. You gotta make big sacrifices, and eventually, boop, it just pops, and there you are, and that's you just being collected like a nice ripe apple that made the choice. Your
Yeah,
life
again,
accumulates to you being like a carrot, a celestial carrot.
Celestial Carrot. Yes. If I ever join a band, that's going to be the name. Celestial Carrots. I appreciate your once again bringing it back to seasons, because I think just as you could say each day, each diurnal period represents a cycle of death and rebirth. Certainly the same with the seasons, going from spring to summer to winter to fall. That is most definitely a cycle, repeating cycle of death and rebirth in many places on the planet. What do you think, Andy? Anything to add?
I love this image. I love like this how there's like seven limbs and seven heads, and then there's a rainbow behind it all. And um I'm guessing the other card yeah version also has a rainbow. And yeah, I agree with Guillermo. It's all the harvesting of our experiences, and that every moment goes back to the creator, as an experience, and new information. And every night we go to sleep, that all that gets, like, bits get harvested, they get filed away, and then the next morning there's a regeneration and new experiences. Even if every day is the same routine, our feelings will be different, in all sorts of subtle ways. And yeah, and like, another thing about the harvest is this card reminds me of just not holding on to things, letting go of everything that we've already experienced, so that we can then appreciate new experiences much more deeply, because they've already been harvested, I guess.
What a beautiful way to think about it. Again, there's so many things you guys have said that never occurred to me, never saw it that way before. And that is another great example. Never really thought about that importance, the idea of letting go. So, at least not in this context. Much appreciated. What do you think? Neely, anything to add?
Yeah, I love the letting go analogy. Just everything that we experience specifically right now in the body is something that is happening within our energetic field. And if we hold on to too much old energy, then there is no room for new energy to come in. So I really love that. And I wanted to talk a little about each moment is a moment of death and transformation. If we look into the microscopic level, our cells die and regenerate every millisecond, right? When we have that's in a normal way. Even when we have a wound, then the cells over there die and regenerate, and that's another good thing, and another good place where in the body we die and regenerate. If you're talking about experiences that we are having, let's say we had some sort of an argument with somebody, and we thought about it, we processed it, we rise from that experience as a completely new person. So in a sense, our old person who was embedded in the drama died, and a new person who's not embedded in the drama is now alive.
Well said. Yeah, really beautiful. And I guess I was reminded as you were speaking that in order to transform, to become something different, you do have to let go of who you were, what you were before. Otherwise, you can't really change into something new and different. So, yeah, what a great lesson for all of our viewers to remember. If it's okay with you, I did want to take a closer look at the right angles because they are talking about the right angles here. I would assume at least the angle of the scythe here is one good example of a 90-degree angle there. But how each of the images leading to the transformations of mind, body, and spirit, and ultimately to the great transformative choice, has the increasing intensity of increasing articulation of concept. That is to say, each image in which you find this angle may increasingly be seen to be a more and more stridently calling voice of opportunity to use each resource for the grand work of the adept, which builds towards transformation using the spirit's bountiful shuttle to intelligent infinity. So as noted before, yes, we see crossed legs and right angles appearing quite a few times throughout the archetypes of mind, body, and spirit, here in the experience of the mind and the significator of the body that we've seen already. And it is worth noting that in session 94, question 26, Ra said, "The cross formed by the living limbs of this image signifies that which is the nature of mind, body, spirit complexes and manifestation within your illusion. There is no experience which is not purchased by effort of some kind, no act of service to self or others which does not bear a price to the entity manifesting, commensurate with its purity. All things in manifestation may be seen in one way or another to be offering themselves in order that transformations may take place upon the level appropriate to the action." Yeah, really beautiful, powerful passage that I think is worth meditating and reflecting on. I'm certainly reminded of Jesus and the sacrifice upon the cross. Again, the ultimate reflection of those right angles and part of the Ankh symbol that Guillermo was referring to. And the idea that there's no act of service to self or others which does not bear a price to the entity manifesting commensurate with its purity. And yeah, certainly Jesus making the ultimate sacrifice on the cross in service to others in order to show the way to fourth density. So powerful, commensurate with the purity of intent. Any thoughts? Anything to add on this? I'll just leave it open to the panelists. Did anybody have anything they wanted to add to this part?
Oh, this gets me so excited because for me, the cross and also you mentioned the word shuttle, and they Ra and Quo talk about this quite a lot in terms of the shuttle and the cross, often in the same sentence. And you know, where they mention cross, they often mention shuttle as well. And for me, it's all about being in the here and now between space time and time space and being in the middle, and how they talk about the spirit as the shuttle as well. And when we're in the here now, we're actually shuttling the spirit in between time space and space time in the cross, like right in at the intersection.
Right. Yeah, and I do believe that is the transformation that they're referring to here. With death, the body's transformed to a higher vibration body for additional learning. That death of the physical body is not the end of it. That your body is transformed and continues on after that. Something that I think they said Jesus was trying to show through his act of willingly sacrificing himself on the cross. I'm not a Christian, by the way, in case anybody is watching. I don't have a dog in this fight or anything like this. I just think it's a beautiful example of a really, really advanced spiritual entity to do that. And obviously, for folks who didn't know, yeah, the figure known as Jesus is mentioned a lot in channeling sessions. Seems to be a big deal, not just on this planet, but apparently on other planets. Shall we go ahead and move on to our last archetype? Let us take a look then at Great Way of the Body. In session 81, question 14, Ra said, the great way of the body must be seen, as are all the archetypes of the body, to be a mirror image of the thrust of the activity of the mind. The body is the creature of the mind and is the instrument of manifestation for the fruits of mind and spirit. Therefore, you may see the body as providing the athanor through which the alchemist manifests gold. And then in session 100, one of the last few, question 7, Ra said, as one observes the veil of the image of the great way of mind, it may be helpful to ideate using the framework of environment. The great way of mind, body, or spirit is intended to limn the milieu within which the work of the mind, body, or spirit shall be placed. Limn the milieu, I looked it up, means to depict or paint a picture of environment or setting. So I believe I would interpret that to mean the great way of the mind and the body and the spirit are painting a picture of the setting in which the work of mind, body, and spirit takes place. Is that how you're seeing that, Andy, or do you have a different take on that?
That's how I'm seeing it, as well as a delineation of the area in which that work is taking place and what it's about. So, for instance, the alchemists, when I meditated on this, it's all about being the vessel and and becoming aware of the body as a vessel in which the spirit can be worked on and transformed, and the experiences and everything that gets poured into the vessel then gets transformed and periodically needs to be harvested or emptied, because they do talk about emptying the vessel. And we do that by sort of being in a state of flow and emptying our minds. And and then just that constant transformation, and that in terms of like limbing the milieu as well, for me is about these cards. On top of that, I see each of the Great Way of the Body cards as preparation for the next working.
Hmm,
So, for instance, the Great Way of the Mind is a vehicle, the chariot, right? And then and then the next seven cards, um, we then adopt this idea of the vehicle, the mind as the vehicle, but the analogy that I've used, the body as vehicle being driven, um, it's like a room that you prep for before going into next phase of working. And then the alchemist um is about having achieved that state of being an alchemist, and then going in, or the skills of an alchemist, and then going into the spiritual archetypes, which is very deep alchemical work, I
for
think.
sure.
Mm.
Yeah, wow, a whole lot to unpack in what you just said. But I'm definitely picking up on that alchemy part of it. That is the name of this particular archetype. And I am noting, again, the right angles formed by the two wings here. And Athanor, for viewers who are not familiar with that term, refers to the furnace that alchemists are said to use to change lead into gold. So the idea is that the body is the Athanor through which the alchemist is able to change lead to gold or to otherwise make magical things happen. That's pretty cool. What do you think, Neely? Anything to add?
Yeah, it's quite amazing. Without the body, without actually, our spirit being manifest in a physical body, we won't be able to make any progress, right? So Kuo and I think Ra are talking a lot about, being outside of the body as a place of very, very slow progression. But when you come here down into the earth, inside this sweaty body, and experience all the catalysts, this is where you really make the progress. This is where you really do things, and that lead you at the end to the choice. I'm also looking at the Great Way as kind of like, this is, if you're looking at the archetypes like the matrix, the significator, the potentiator, they are all active, they are actors. But the Great Way is kind of like the environment in which all of those archetypical actors are playing, right? So in a sense, it's not the weather, it's more like the climate of an area. It's not like the single storm or the single sunny day. It's more like the climate and the environment in which everything is happening. So you can look at it like Andy said, and look forward to where that way leads you, but also to look backwards and see that everything has actually happened in that great way, and in a sense influenced the great way, but the great way also influenced everything around it.
Very circular reasoning you got there. Yeah. Yeah, much appreciated. And it reminds me, Quo has said many times, and Ra, I believe, that so much progress can be made here in a relatively short time in third density that would take thousands, millions of years in higher densities because they know all the answers already. They can see everything already. It's why so many wanderers choose to incarnate now, because there's so much progress that can be made through this alchemical process, as it were. Guillermo, anything to add?
think it's really important to keep in mind that we still have a body when this body dies. The body being referred in the law of one it's more subtle than the manifestation that we're seeing in this third density. Ra does have a body. He has a six density activation body. We still he still carry on. It's a part of the triad of the complex that, and same thing for the archetypes that we're discussing. They carry on across densities. So we can only wonder, about the meaning that some four, fifth, six, seven density beings would have, like looking at the tarot, their own reflections that they might see. In this case, for me, the great way, the way I see it, and the right angles that I've just been thinking is it's in in algebra, there is this concept of vector spaces, and our universe is a fourth dimensional vector space, and we live in these things, but there are certain things that are called orthonormal vector spaces that could englobe our vector space or just be adjacent to it, and we would have no contact with it whatsoever because of the geometries. And the 90-degree, it's very, very, very important for the vector spaces to be independent. So the wings and the right positioning of the wings, I think it refers to the geometry of the dynamical geometry necessary to switch between densities and eventually between octaves, because I think that's the end goal there. You see the sun, you see the significator of the spirit. Eventually, there's this 90-degree shift, and poof, you're gone from this octave somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and so much of that is over my head. My brain doesn't even know what to do with so much of that. But yeah, I think that's the joy of having these discussions with others so that you can kind of work together, hear different points of view, get confirmation or not of your own perceptions, understandings, and things. So yeah, much appreciate everything everyone has shared here. I believe I have a second passage on Great Way of the Body to look at. Shall we look at that one? And session 103, question 11, Ra said, the entire mood, shall we say, of the Great Way is indeed dependent upon its notable difference from the significator. The significator is the significant self to a great extent, but not entirely, influenced by the lowering of the veil. The great way of the mind, the body, or the spirit draws the environment, which has been the new architecture caused by the veiling process, and thusly dipped in the great limitless current of time and space. And session 89, question 26, Ra says, we were intending to suggest that, in the use of the system known to you as the Tarot for advancing the spiritual evolution of the self, a proper understanding, if we may use this misnomer, of archetype 22 is greatly helpful in sharpening the basic view of the significator of the mind, body, and spirit, and further throws into starker relief the transformation and great way of mind, body, and spirit complexes. There's so much in here that I had to like read and reread and reread again and again to try to figure out what they were saying. But what I'm getting is that the mood of the great way depends on its difference from the significator. The significator is affected to a great extent by the lowering of the veil. The great way draws the environment, which has been the new architecture caused by the veiling process. And that the archetype 22 they're referring to here is the choice, the one that we're going to get into after that, which apparently they say is very helpful in sharpening the basic view of the significator and throwing into sharper relief its differences from that to the transformation or great way. I don't know. What do you think on that, Neely? What do you make out of all this verbal saladry?
I will pass this time.
Wise choice. What do you think, Guillermo? Any thoughts on anything here?
Uh, I I think Andy was supposed to go before me because I just spoke.
So,
I'm also making time, but I'll say something. I'll say something. I was just trying to get something to say out of this. It's so dense. It's probably the most dense raw passage of the whole series. I'm just astounded. I
yeah. Oh, I'm
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
I can say something.
Yeah, go for it.
Here you go, something. No, no, no. I'm just joking.
For our
this
viewers, a little behind the scenes note, I usually set up a rotation order to determine who I'm going to ask first, second, and third. Just kind of spread it out so it's not always the first, not always the same person talking first or last. So I think I lost track of the rotation, but I thought I had Guillermo after Neely. Anyway, it really doesn't matter if you don't. Like I said, I have a hard time making sense out of much of anything here. If anything, I just thought, nah, it's a nice transition into archetype 22, the choice, which
I'd say that the choice you see it hanging there, and here you see it like almost like godlike. I'd say that's a nice contrast, you know? He's being hanged and now he's all godlike.
yeah, yeah. Andy?
Yeah, I always have something to say about archetypes, even when the topic isn't about archetypes. I'll still talk about
Let's talk about
archetypes.
cars. How's that?
Yeah, exactly. But so I've got the images here. Um, and maybe if I say something, and provoke Neely and Guillermo to say something. So for me, the the significator, I'll start with the Great Way. So the Great Way is um about letting the creator take charge and just moving out of the way for the creator. The whole theme for the Great Ways for me is not my will, but yours be done. So being the creator's vehicle, being the creator's vessel or channel, being the creator's instrument, right? And sorry, I'm lecturing. Don't believe anything I say, by the way. Just go and
That's the third time you said that.
yeah, I know, but I always say that because it's just words. But it's just go and meditate and see if it's true for you. And before you get to the Great Way, there's a necessary step that one needs to take, and that is for me anyway, the three transformation cards represent surrender. So that crossed arms in some traditions is about supplication, kind of surrendering to the higher power. Death, it's like giving up of one's own will to the inevitable. And then the resurrection, like we can't control when I imagine being resurrected, like you don't determine the speed or the direction at which you're being pulled, right? So and then like Ra talks about the significator, on the other hand, has more to do with our own perceptions of, the mind, body, spirit in this incarnation, and kind of our idea of what service means. So this is our idea, and the Great Way is the one infinite creator's idea. So yeah. Oh, I can't hear you. Anyone else here, Jonathan?
No, but
Sorry.
I might add something.
There
Go
we
ahead, Guillermo.
So sorry. I thought that we were not able to hear you. Would you like
Yeah,
to?
I'm sorry. I had my mic muted. I forgot. I was just going to say to Andy, I apologize. I didn't know you had visuals to share. Otherwise, I would have built them into the slideshow or stopped the screen share so our viewers could see more of what you were doing rather than on the tiny little window that's going to show up in the recording.
Oh, that's okay. I wasn't planning on it. It's just this document sits on my desk all the time. It never leaves. So just happened to be.
Yeah. Well, comparing each of those archetypes in the mind, body, and spirit, super helpful to see them side by side. So I apologize to viewers if you were not able to see the graphics that Andy was holding up, but you can look them up yourself. Guillermo, was there something you wanted to add?
All right. Yeah. Andy had to go before. Now I have an idea.
Nice.
So how does it work? The fool goes into manifestation, then he makes the great path or the great journey or the great journey of the hero, whatever, and then he comes to the great way in all the senses of the term, and which is not really just destination, it's just the configuration. But I mean, I think what they mean to say in the second paragraph is that the universe has manifested itself and through us, then we have like randomly collected bits of information and we've gathered experiences, we've processed it, we've been transformed by it, and then it's all being released like through this great way, between the manifester and the manifestee. And then this creation informs the creator about itself. And it's like it comes in through the energy of the fool, and then it comes back out through the energies of the great way. How it's all taken shape, how it's been shaped, transformed by the whole process of going through this journey. And then there's this exchange between these two energies of archetype 0 and 21, or 21 and 22, that the it's like the dialogue that goes in
Okay.
there. I think that's why they talk about the two.
Beautifully said. Much appreciated. And everything Andy said too. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch this video and like reflect on this a bit and meditate on it. Otherwise, for now, since we're going like way over our usual time, why don't we go ahead and move ahead to the last archetype, number 22, and that is. Oh, sorry. Should note for our viewers that in session 8820, question 24, Ra said, when at length the student had mastered these visualizations and had considered each of the 7 classifications of archetype, looking the relationships between mind, body, and spirit, as Andy just did for us, we then suggested consideration of archetypes in pairs, 1 and 2, which would be matrix and potentiator, 3 and 4, which would be catalyst and experience, 5, significator, and then 6 and 7, transformation and great way. You may continue in this form for the body and spirit archetypes. You will note that the consideration of the significator was left unpaired, for the significator shall be paired with archetype 22, the choice. So let's take a closer look at the choice. Session 88, question 16. Ross says, the one great breakthrough which was made after our work in third density was done was the proper emphasis given to the arcanum number 22, which we have called the choice. In our own experience, we were aware that such a unifying archetype existed, but did not give that archetype the proper complex of concepts in order to most efficaciously use that archetype in order to promote our evolution. Super fascinating here. I believe they said somewhere at some point the question was how many archetypes do you find in other archetypical minds? And I think Ross said at some point that the choice was the big revelation that was added last. And I think they said they weren't aware of any other archetypical minds that had more images than 22. But seems to be super important. What do you think, Guillermo? Any thoughts on this? You are actually next in the rotation.
The choice. It's the concept of free will too, there, right? That comes into place, I think. I mean, you kind of need it to make a choice, to be free. And to be free is kind of like to be somewhat fooled, like willfully fooled about your own nature and about the nature of things. So, as we see here, and as we usually see, it's a kind of like a willfully ignorance or veil that is placed there. And it's a game of shadows with yourself. There's the crocodile that is about to attack him, but if we're all one, then who's attacking who? You know, who's causing what? Is this question about, you forget who you are, you forget what anything is, and then you figure it out again. And maybe you come up with a different answer than the one you had in to begin with prior to the game. So I think that's the game. Is what happens if you pretend that you are what you are not, and then maybe you'll discover something about what you are that you didn't think you'd be? I don't know. It's really confusing
Yeah.
when talking about this archetype.
Well, and it reminds me of that staff that you pointed earlier at in one of our archetypes. And indeed, the staff reappears here again in the right hand of the Fool, indicating, I think, the importance and the value of faith and will when you're making blind choices, like the Fool who is blindfolded, just trusting, relying on that staff of faith and will that all is well, that all will be well. That appears to be so central to the third density experience. Any thoughts? Anything to add, Andy?
Yeah, I love this card. And at the moment I'm working with this card in relation to every single other card and kind of like meditating on how the choice manifests in all the other archetypes. And I love what you pointed out, Guillermo, about free will. And I was having this discussion with our mutual friend Hudson and talking about how like angels from the angelic realm don't have free will, and he said that, well, the reason they don't have free will is because they know they're not under the veil, and when you can't choose because the truth is the truth. and um
But
and
they still have to make choices, right? I've never heard that angels don't actually have free will. That's
yeah,
something that.
apparently they don't. So because they know the truth, and they can, because they know the truth, they can only act in alignment with the truth. um I don't know if that makes sense.
I think it does in the sense that they are so pure in their polarity towards service to others that they would never choose to do something that would be negative or depolarizing.
Yeah.
If that's what you mean by free will, I guess so. I just assumed that, well, I assumed every entity in the universe has free will. I assumed that since it was such a core part of the universe as we know it, that every entity has free will.
Yeah. No, apparently angels don't. And I've read that in several different places as well. But yeah, and I've been thinking about the concept of free will recently, and my thoughts on it is that actually there is only one choice, when it comes to free will, and that choice is where to place our awareness and attention. Because when we, for instance, look at the people out there who are saying, oh, we want freedom of speech and we want freedom to own guns, and it I kind of think, well, is that freedom? And if you have to fight for your freedom, then are you really free? And you know, it's you're not free from whatever is driving you to fight for it. And because it's not you who's making that choice, it's your fear.
Hmm.
And I don't know if I'm making sense. It's like
Yeah, interesting. And I didn't necessarily want to go down that train of thought in
sorry.
terms of getting into politics or anything, but I think I understand what you mean. Did you have any
Yeah.
thoughts, Neely? Anything to add to that?
Yeah, the Fool is my favorite card actually. And probably because about 99.9% of the time, I feel like a fool. I feel like I don't have the full picture. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm fumbling around. I'm hoping that my choices make sense to anybody. So I think it's a beautiful card because just looking at it, you see there's danger that might be represented by the alligator. There is also hidden knowledge by that column that has some inscriptions on it, and it's toppled down, so it's not necessarily straightforward knowledge. And I think there's also knowledge in those two little sacks that the image the fool is carrying. So he's carrying something with him that will help him make the choice, but it's not obvious. It's not outside on the surface, in my mind. Um, and also, the Fool card has been nominated as number 0 in some tarot decks and number 22 in others. And to me, you can look at the fool's journey or the hero's journey as starting from number 0. I haven't done any processes on myself ever before. I didn't think about catalyst, and I'm making a bold choice here without knowledge. But you can also look at it as kind of like the culmination of the work that I've done on myself, and now my choice. I still need a lot of faith to make sure, because I don't really know, but I do have something, that accumulated throughout my lifetime or whatever that will help me make the choice maybe a little bit more in a more informed way.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, Guillermo.
Oh, just to add to the angels conversation, I once took a theology class and it was said by the theology professor, not that it has anything to do with like how angels actually are, but that by definition, angels are messengers of God or of the source. So they're like direct channels of the cosmic universal will. That's in that sense, like their will is the cosmic will. There's no such thing as like, is it free or is it not? It's just the cosmic will. They're just like extensions or like conveyors. They're messengers of the cosmic will. So in that sense, they're different from us. And is free will something to be fought for? In the matrix of the spirit, there's like this kind of dragon, and the angels are like sort of like locked down. I think that conveys, below the veil where we are, where we started from. So we're like angels that descended here in this dense experience with the veil and stuff, pretending that we don't have free will. So I think initially, when you're like chained and stuff and you've sort of forgotten your nature, I think initially it's, yeah, you have to fight for your will. You have to kind of go get it. And eventually, you realize like deeper natures about yourself, but that only happens after some struggle, right? Like initial struggle, like our species. We struggled for a long time. I mean, we had to fight other species for like we were eating by jaguars and saber-tooths, and like the lions were just making a mess out of us, and we had to fight and we had to win, like really mindlessly. Like there was nothing spiritual about the brutal savagery of like our ancestors, but we're building on their shoulders, Now we can actually have a discussion about free will, but it didn't come without effort.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, well said. All beautifully said. And I don't think I have anything of value to add to that. We do actually have one more passage on this last archetype, and then, yeah, we think we are about ready to wrap things up. So let's take a look at one more passage. This is from September 25th, 1994. Quo said, and this has been edited for brevity. The entire process of seeking within your third density illusion is one in which you become that fool. It is a process which contains the, as your Bible has called it, the valley of the shadow of death. There is in this process a rod and a staff which comforts those who walk through the valley of the shadow of death. These are the will and the faith components that ring throughout each archetypical image and are as the guiding star. For the faith that this process will end well must be fueled by the will to persevere. Thus there is the threat of the falling to one's death, the being eaten alive by the illusion, the inability to see the danger about one, for it is all about one in darkness, it would seem. Thus the image of the fool is well suited to your illusion, and is given as that motto by which each might look for inspiration and illumination of the heart. We speak of the heart, for there the love of the Creator may be found and experienced for the self and for all other selves as the self which is the seeker, which continues to place itself in positions similar to the walking from the cliff, willing to be vulnerable and to give without expectation of return. This archetype is the most active archetype, shall we say. Though it is the last to be mastered, it is the first to be called, and the one to be called most often, my friends. Beautiful passage. Again, beautiful poetry of words. And the references to walking from the cliff and falling to one's death, I think, might go well with this other image of the fool that has appeared in other tarot decks. But they certainly use that a lot in channeling sessions. Just love how they're saying, yep, that's pretty good summation of the third density experience. A blindfolded fool walking into danger with no regard for where they're going. What do you think? Neely, any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
Yeah, I think Carla summed it up really well in the expression, we are all bozos on the bus. We're groping in the dark. We have absolutely no idea. We just kind of hope and pray that the purity of our heart is what guiding us.
For sure. Blindfolded bozos on the bus, including the driver. Oh boy. What do you think, Andy? Anything to add?
Yeah, I love the vibe of this quote because it just makes the whole thing feel really fun, like what's the worst that could happen? Fuck it, go for it, and be whatever you feel called to be in the moment, sometimes lovely, sometimes horrible, and what's the worst that could happen?
Aside from getting eaten by alligators and falling off a cliff, not that much. Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll survive that. And that I don't know if you're familiar with Teresa of Avila. She's a Catholic saint. And and she talks about reptiles being like the negative dark aspects of the self. And I kind of feel like when we venture into the waters of consciousness, we will face a lot of aspects, the reptilian aspects of the self, and there's something to be looked forward to because they reveal us to us.
For sure. What do you think, Guillermo? Anything to add?
I think it's such a crazy game that there's no way anyone signs for it without being blindfolded.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is such a great metaphor for the veil of forgetting. That is the risk that each of us chose to take to leave that place where we already know everything. We already know all is one. We already know all the answers. But to come into this place where we go behind this veil of forgetting, and we are as if blindfolded trying to go through this hellish looking third density illusion to many folks, but somehow still able to find the faith that all is well and that all will be well, and to be willing to love others in a world that seems biased towards those who only care about themselves. That's the big boot camp that we signed up for, apparently. It's been a great conversation, much appreciated. I think this is probably a good time to start wrapping things up. Did anybody have anything else they wanted to add on this slide before I change it? Sounds good. So where do we go from here? What are some takeaway lessons we could have from our 2.5 hour discussion so far? I can think of 5 for you to consider. One, yes, if you did not know that the archetypical mind could be thought of as the blueprint or the programming for your third density experience, that would help in terms of understanding anything else that anybody says about the archetypical mind. And in this case, if you can think of the body as a vehicle for the mind, it's the car, so to speak, that your mind as the driver or your soul as the driver is steering around. It's a nice way to look at it. And that, yes, catalyst unprocessed sufficiently by the mind often goes to the body, which can manifest itself in terms of diseases or ailments. And yeah, if you can remember any of those archetypes, man, I would go for the significator, that upside down hanging person as a representation of the body as an instrument of sacrifice for alchemy, for transformation, for magical things to happen, can make a big difference every day. And lastly, the choice is key. You choose what sense data to process or reject in your mind. You choose whether to have positive or negative experiences based on what you're seeing. It's the best I could come up with. What do you think, Andy? Any takeaway lessons you'd like to add of your own? Final thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to go to number 5. I love all of them. But I kind of just want to point out, and you might not agree with me, but whether an experience is positive or negative depends on yourself.
That's how I was taking it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have an experience that most any normal person would say, man, that is a shitty experience. But how you respond to it on the inside as being positive or negative is up to you. Yeah. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Ross said very much to that extent in one of the archetypes of the mind, which I'm escaping because it's been almost 3 hours and my mind is starting to turn into mush. Andy, did you have any thoughts, final reflections, takeaway of your own to add?
Enjoy your body. It's a hilarious thing. It farts, it makes funny noises and smells, and not gonna have it for very long. So yeah.
Farting will never not be funny to me. Neely, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I wanted to reiterate something that Andy had said 2 hours ago. And don't berate yourself if you see something manifesting in your body, and don't tell yourself, oh, it's there because I'm not spiritual enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing things right. Everything, there are no mistakes, and everything is exactly as it should be. So cut yourself some slack.
Great takeaway lesson. Cannot be said enough. Guillermo, anything you want to add?
Well, sometimes left leads to right and right leads to left and positive to negative and negative to positives and upsides. It's downwards. So discernment at all times, you know. The catalyst can be very negative, it can be very pleasing and even very pleasing catalyst, you know, very pleasing, very positive experiences. You can go full maniac. You know, mania is an overdrive of positive emotions. You can just start making like connections in your head and just become totally tuned out. So everything with yeah, well, you can indulge, but moderation it's good in all terms.
Also, all great points, I think, well worth remembering. Panelists, as always, it's been a joy hanging out with you, and I appreciate hearing your thoughts and perspectives and showing me things, teaching me things I had never thought of before. So I believe this would be a great time for our pop quiz. Before we do that, just a reminder to our viewers that we did have another podcast episode on the archetypical mind. So if you want to learn more about the archetypical mind as a whole, that would be a great episode to look for on our YouTube channel. We did also have an episode on archetypes of the mind in particular. I encourage you to check that out if you're interested. Otherwise, yes, it is time for pop quiz. Pop quiz, of course, is something we like to do at the end of our episodes just to kind of end our otherwise serious discussions on a light note and maybe look for law of one connections in pop culture. Since today's episode was about archetypes of the body, I thought it would be fun to have a pop quiz on extremes of the human body as recorded in the Guinness Book of World Records so far in 2025. Panelists, do you guys know the story behind the Guinness World Records? Where it came from, how it originated?
No.
Started with a bar bet. Apparently, there were some folks who were gathered in a pub in Ireland, and they were trying to settle an argument about the fastest game bird in Europe. And one of the guys was apparently with Guinness beer, and he thought it would be nice if there was a book that could be used to settle such arguments. And that's how the Guinness Book of World Records was begun. And continues to this day in website form. So today I'm going to ask you 3 questions about 3 people from the Guinness World Records for something having to do with their body or physical abilities. Going to do it a little bit different this time though. This time each question has a numerical answer, not going to give you multiple choices. Just give it your best guess. Let's see who gets the closest. As always, the points don't matter. If you had fun, you won. But the loser does have to buy a Guinness for everyone in the house. And if you're watching on video, you can say your answers out loud and see if you can score better than the panelists. Are you ready for your first question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Your first question. According to Guinness World Records, what is the record for most fingers and toes on a living person, known as polydactylism? Give me a number. What do you think? Panelists, just
37.
37 is great.
32.
32 is great. Guillermo?
So the normal is 20, right?
I
Yeah.
think so. I haven't checked what's normal.
Define normal. I'm really not clear what normal is anywhere these days, but yes, 10 fingers, 10 toes, that would be the norm. Yeah.
I'd say 25. Yeah.
Nice. Correct answer, I believe, goes to Guillermo. 28. Most fingers and toes on a living person is 28. This person named Devendra Suthar from Gujarat, India, apparently has 14 fingers and 14 toes. Would love to get a shoulder massage from that, dude. That would be freaky and interesting. Lordy. How about this one? What is the world record for farthest eyeball pop, female, in millimeters? What's the farthest that a woman has been able to voluntarily push her eyeballs out of her sockets in millimeters?
5 millimeters?
Yeah, I was going to say 5 as well.
Nice. Anybody else?
3.
Nice. Correct answer is, in fact, 12. Kim Goodman from the United States can pop her eyeballs out to a protrusion of 12 millimeters beyond her eye sockets, as was measured in Istanbul, Turkey in 2007. A record that has not been beaten yet. How about the last one? What is the world record for most consecutive stairs climbed while balancing a person on the head?
Is this in meters or number of steps?
Number of stairs, number of steps.
Okay.
And I got a video to back this one up.
Oh my God, I feel tired looking at this question. I feel exhausted. I was going to take my dog out for a walk after this, but I don't think I think just like reading this is enough exercise for me.
So what do you think? Throw out a number, Andy. How many
I
consecutive
would
stairs?
say 285.
Nice. Neely, Guillermo?
51.
Nice.
147.
Nice. Pretty close, all of you. Correct answer is 100. It was achieved by Gyang Quoc Nhep and Yang Quoc Co, both Vietnamese. It happened in Catalonia, Spain in 2021. Apparently they're circus performers. It was a trick they already have as part of their act, but they wanted to challenge your ability doing something even harder. And so this is what it looks like. Check it out. Thank you to our friends at Guinness World Records for the video. What a beautiful thing. That's just amazing. Just shows you what interesting things humans can do. Oh, Lordy. Any final thoughts, reflections before we say goodbye?
They should have chosen longer stairs because they could have continued.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like how they added the little metal steps at the end so they could have 100 for sure. Panelists, as always, it's been a pleasure and a joy hanging out with you. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. To all our friends at L&L Research, thank you for all you've done, continue to do in service to others. To you who are watching this on video at some time in the near or perhaps very distant future, Thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. We are sending you our love light, and we are receiving yours. Until next time, in the love and light of the one infinite creator, Adonai, Namaste. Say goodbye, panelists.
Bye.
Ciao.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.